One thing that I can promise our fans is that there will not be a player that's available that we won't study, that we won't look at and see if it can help the team. Sometimes those opportunities work, and you're able to do that, and sometimes they don't.
What's up, everybody? How we doing? Got some breaking news, Thomas. We always go live, of course, whenever that happens, but not a move, not a player, not basically anything that Howie won't look at, no stone unturned. How we doing officially? I'll get it up on the screen, but Darius Slay being released by the Eagles. Several reasons for that, and we'll break it down here, but initial thoughts on that.
Yeah, first off, I want to say thanks to Darius Slay. I mean, he has been one of the probably best Eagle cornerbacks of my lifetime. Going out a Super Bowl champion is also awesome as well. But I think as you get this put up on the screen, Josh, there's a lot to go ahead and break down here. First off, they're designating him as a post-June 1st cut. That's going to save about $4 to $5 million in cap space and really $16 million overall in terms of his contract in 2025. So Philadelphia clearly trying to save money moving off of the 34-year-old. Now, there are some reports, Josh, John Clark from NBC Philadelphia being one of them, saying Philadelphia could look to bring back Darius Slay at a cheaper price. But I think it's very safe to say right now they're giving Darius Slay the opportunity to test the free agent market, see if there's a team willing to pay a 34-year-old, still number one cornerback in the National Football League or top cornerback in the National Football League, a bigger overall salary than Philadelphia is willing to pay. If not, come back to Philly. We'll sign you on a much cheaper team-friendly contract, finish out as an Eagle. But if Detroit wants to give you a bag, if Carolina wants to give you a bag, insert your team that has a lot of cap space here, wants to go ahead and pay Darius Slay, he likely will go ahead and walk, leaving somewhat of a hole at the cornerback spot, Josh. And really, one main contender we both can agree on is probably going to re-sign with Philadelphia now that this is over, and Isaiah Rodgers.
Yeah, it feels much more likely. And again, people just hopping on. Obviously, you see the tweet on your screen. Many people have also confirmed this. So Darius Slay being released post-June 1 release is the designation there. It's kind of nice that, the NFL allows the post-June 1, but do it 100%. Beforehand because, you don't want to play with people's 100%. Lives. Allow them to sign with other teams. Don't wait too long. Other comments on James Bradbury, I see that. There's a difference, though, of looking at that one versus this instance of, hey, look, they can allow Slay to go and peruse the free agent market. And like you're saying, Thomas, if he finds a better scenario, if that makes sense for him and his family, more power to you. Good luck. Congratulations. Sure. All that is perfectly fine. But if not, it's not impossible in a different scenario where Philly tries to renegotiate, get a different cap hit, having to free up some space. And so the question does become, is it Isaiah Rogers? Is Howie moving some money, reshuffling around to make another move? I know that Myles Garrett is the continued every single day, basically. Like, that is the move we need to keep an eye on. But it could be others, right? Because, Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, do they bring that back? Does it help for Zack Baun? Cap alleviations, you could certainly get it done where they're at right now. But it's what, 22 million-ish is about where the Eagles are. And then if you add the 4 to 5 million for the cap savings there, I mean, not too bad. A 27 million in cap savings on that side. And naturally, we saw the secondary is what it is. Slay helped tremendously, and we've seen instances where, again, you have a veteran presence, you have a leader like that, you have Slay who kind of helps mentors Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell. We've seen the same thing with Kelsey and Cam Jurgens, a number of different guys, Fletcher Cox, Jalen Carter. Sometimes they stay around, sometimes they just retire. Other times is, hey, you know what, I want to play one more season, and Slay definitely can do that. I mean, no one's going to say that he can't after the season that he had, especially the way that he ended. So, you know what, like you said, thank you to Slay. Appreciate you. If this is legit, couldn't thank you enough. I mean, obviously Super Bowl and everything there, but secondary will be okay. Just curious on, the next move and which direction they go.
Well, I do think that you mentioned, obviously, how much money this does free up overall to go ahead and sign somebody. They essentially now are guaranteed to have the money to re-sign any of the 4 big-name free agents currently in-house, right? They have the money to sign Zack Baun. We can argue they had the money before this. This gives them a little bit more wiggle room. But it also, like you said, Josh Sweat, Milton Williams. We've talked to people, at least I talked to somebody this past weekend saying Philadelphia is trying to get either they want Zack Baun, either Josh Sweat or Milton Williams to come back to Philadelphia. This could be the move to go ahead and bring a Milton Williams back to go ahead and have enough money to make that move possible. Now, it doesn't guarantee any of that. It's not like I was told for sure. I said they're trying to go ahead and do this sort of thing. But freeing up money makes a ton of sense here. And I think we really have to focus on the fact that Philadelphia's defense was already one of the youngest in the National Football League, and they feel comfortable enough in the secondary to move off of Slay, move off of his, honestly, Pro Bowl caliber second half to the season. He was incredible in the postseason, especially he was great in the Super Bowl. They feel good enough where they are at with Quinyon Mitchell on one side, Cooper DeJean in the slot, the two safeties behind, and at worst, Keely Ringo right now and a draft pick. At best, it'd be Isaiah Rodgers, Keely Ringo, and maybe a later round draft pick as well to shore up that secondary. So it's a move that I think emotionally is a little bit tough because of what Darius Slay has meant to Philadelphia. I mentioned at the top of the show, the Eagles haven't really had a lot of league cornerbacks, right? Asante Samuel, Sheldon Brown, Lito Shepherd. Those are names way, way, way back in the past. That's my childhood. I grew up with Sheldon Brown and Lito Shepherd. Darius Slay came in when he was traded from the Detroit Lions for a pretty decent haul. He's been the best Eagles cornerback really of my entire lifetime. I think Asante Samuel's up there as well. But what Slay has meant to this overall roster, this organization, this city, cannot be overlooked. I do think the fact he's 34 years old and probably wants one more 2-year deal at pretty decent money a year is the real difference maker and why he's no longer an Eagle.
Yeah, I totally agree. And seeing clips of Slay, the mic'd up footage, everything else, how he's been able to help the young guys. Again, if this is it, like the amount of information they've gotten, you've seen and heard Quinyon Mitchell talking about Slay. Same thing for Coop. Same thing for Keely Ringo. All the guys there.
They love him.
It's not as much of a they can't do it. They can't take that next step. I mean, heck, the squad just won the Super Bowl. So, again, they have that mental fortitude. They have the knowing this, the willingness. They have the ability. And there's an element of going like, hey, look, we've learned a ton. You've got Christian Parker and the DB's coach. So knowledge transfer, all that, like, I don't think there's a whole lot of concern or worry or anything like that. But sure, for Slay and what he brings, I totally get it. There's going to be some on one side, I know, because I've seen a few comments already being like, cool, not necessarily a good riddance, but moving on. And others that are like, man, this is terrible. But ultimately, if Slay could get his bag somewhere else, he's a Super Bowl champion. If he gets more money in cash, you know what? Support your family. That's fine. I don't knock it. Totally understand. If he is able to come back, like we say, then that's great too, because you just have more depth. But I think it speaks to if you can get something to figure out here, because we've talked about a number of times, look at the Saquon Barkley contract. That was the 3 years for 37 million, 38 million, and a cap hit of under 4 million. So, if you do something like that in the sense of a Zack Baun with a 45 million, let's say, but it's a 4 or 5 million cap hit, then basically this move with Darius Slay, if you have to do that to move on with Darius Slay, you could lock up Zack Baun for a cap hit this year that is the same thing of moving on from Slay. And I think everyone would sign up for that, because then you say, well, we still have another 22 million in cap space this season. I know you still can't just push everything to backload, but it's not the worst case scenario to say, does this end up getting the Zack Baun deal done this week? So for what that's worth anyway.
And that's a key factor there, because Philadelphia does not want Zack Baun to hit the open market. Now, I know in the NFL, legal tampering, right? You can't technically talk to other teams until this time next week. I'm sure Zack Baun has already been gauging the market. I'm sure the whispers behind closed doors have already been saying, we could give you this, or we could go ahead and give you that. But they don't want him to officially hit the free agent market. The more time goes on that Zack Baun is not signed, the harder it's going to be to go ahead and make sure he comes back to Philadelphia. So as you mentioned, this could be the first domino in a number of dominoes to go ahead and hopefully happen over the next couple of days. And it still is all about making sure the Eagles get younger, save the cap space, have the ability to re-sign people of their own, and go on another run at the number one defense in 2025. I do wonder, though, Josh, because we mentioned Darius Slay potentially returning, and that's the report from NBC Sports' John Clark. Multiple people are saying maybe this is exactly what happened last year. Post-June cut, contract's too big, come back at a cheaper number.
Sure.
You go 2 more years in Philadelphia. If that's the case, though, my guess is it's going to take a little bit for it to go ahead and happen, because Isaiah Rodgers is going to want to hit the free agent market. Like Isaiah Rodgers, much like Milton Williams and Josh Sweat, I say it all the time on my show, they have not gotten that big contract. And all NFL players are playing for that first big contract after a rookie deal. And obviously Sweat's played on, deals after his contract, but Milton Williams coming off his rookie contract. Same basically for Isaiah Rodgers. He hasn't gotten the bag as well. This means that Zay is going to hit free agency on Monday. He's going to start talking to people, and he's going to gauge his interest. And I think Philadelphia is going to have to sit back and wait and go, okay, here's Isaiah Rodgers' offer. Let's see how we can counter it. Do we have enough to go ahead and counter it? And then they could pivot off of him, go back to Slay. And then if worse came to worse, Josh, you have 22-year-old Keely Ringo, who a lot of people in training camp last year were saying at times he was the leader in the clubhouse to start opposite of Quinyon, or opposite of Darius Slay. I mean, he was like the guy for a while, and then eventually got kind of moved down the overall depth chart. But they're very high on Kelee Ringo, who, again, is very young. And so, worst case scenario, this allows you to re-sign Baun, maybe make another splash, whether that's Milton or Garrett or a smaller name, who knows, but also still be able to get somebody in free agency who could be cheaper than Isaiah Rodgers and Darius Slay, or just go to the draft and hope you can go ahead and build another elite cornerback from a second-round draft pick, a third-round draft pick, or vice versa.
Yeah. So many different options. And this is why
a lot of options.
Howie is playing 4D chess when the rest of the world is playing checkers. You know, there's so much, so many elements to this. Long-term thoughts, plans. We talked about it a number of different times. I know some people were like, they're not going to do that. They're not going to move on from Slay, still playing at a high level. They're not necessarily, because, we just had John Clark's report up there, and as you were alluding to, it's always possible. Anything is possible. We've seen that. Now,
sure.
Jennifer Slay was tweeted out, I think, emotional, obviously, with this, but it's happened in years past. You never know. Sometimes it's an about face. We get reports after the fact, and you're like, they were completely going to move on, and then all of a sudden they come back and say, actually, wait, hang on, we're going to make this thing happen. Big Dom gave Slay a call. That's what got it to happen the first time.
So what happened.
Big Dom could always put a stop on this. If he ends up just calling and saying, no, this is going to stand put. You're going to stay here in Philly. But it's just to have those different options. So I totally agree. Never a bad thing to have multiple outs, multiple avenues for players, different potentials you can go with free agency coming up. And, again, we're sitting here on a Monday, 1 week away from that legal tampering. And I think if this is the domino that falls now, it only alludes to the fact that Howie has a couple more moves that's going to happen, whether it is a contract restructuring, whether it is getting a long-term deal. I mean, keep an eye out for Cam Jurgens, right? Because that's another one that we assume is going to eventually.
Yes.
Zack Baun, as you mentioned as well, that was the top priority from multiple reporters to get done before free agency. So again, we're 1 week away, but it gives you so many different options with a little extra cap space. So I'm a fan of it.
Well, let's just be very clear, too, about Darius Slay, because as much as respect we have of Darius Slay and as elite as he was, really for large stretches of the 2024 season, he still was on and off the football field. There were plenty of situations whenever either, Slay would hobble off, and then out would come Isaiah Rogers, and then Slay would come back in. He clearly, at the age of 34, is on his last leg here, no pun intended. Now, he can give you elite caliber play when healthy, but if you're Philadelphia and you're looking at this, not trying to re-sign him, let's just say they are officially done with Darius Slay and we want to move forward, they're thinking about another Super Bowl run in 2025, and that's going to include 18, 19, 20 games. It's a lot of football, right? So they want to get younger on that back end, and they want to start building that next of their elite cornerback opposite of Quinyon Mitchell, and whether that's Isaiah Rodgers or Kelee Ringo, they think that hopefully those guys can stay a little bit healthier than Darius Slay. And I think the fear overall for Slay is if you were to sign him to a lucrative 2-year contract, he could get hurt really easily or be on and off the football field and not end up being worth what you eventually have to pay him.
Right. Yes. And that's, I guess you could make the case of like, okay, it's an argument for every player. But when you start to see, okay, Vic Fangio defense especially making and asking corners, secondary players to make the tackles, and you've seen some issues with some injuries pop up and everything else, you might go, well, we can move on. We have a couple other avenues there. And, again, you drafted these guys for a reason. Eventually, whether it's this year or next year, you do start to move on and see what they have. Kelee Ringo did great as a gunner, and he was playing well in training camp. So, hey, maybe they go – if Vic Fangio says, you know what, I think we can work with that. I think we can get something to happen. Then there you go. Perhaps not. Perhaps it's Isaiah Rogers, who was obviously the first man up every single time if there was injuries and getting in some action there. We would love that. Big fan of the show. Be able to get Zay long-term for Philly because he brings a lot of different unique elements, and especially with the speed there. But there's so many different guys. Again, seeing people join last minute, curious what was happening. Darius Slay, as you see on your screen, officially will be released, designated post June 1 release, which is a approximately 4.3 million saved against the cap. So, again, big thanks to Darius Slay, and you'd imagine James Bradbury will similarly eventually be that move. Some people say, why was it not JB first? Eventually, they're not gonna do anything long term with JB, unfortunately for him either. But yes, there's the veteran leadership, and then it's just curious of what is the next move. I think that's where we go to.
Well, I think it's crazy too that before we get to the super chat, 3, 4, 5 years ago, this would be a mind-numbing move, right? Philadelphia would do everything possible to keep their best cornerback because of how cornerback poor Philadelphia's really been throughout my entire lifetime, right? We talked about Sheldon Brown, Lito Shepherd, obviously, some good ones here and there, but overall, Philadelphia has struggled to have top cornerback play. And Darius Slay, based on his 2024 performance, you would think they'd want to keep him. That's how confident they are in Vic Fangio and what the secondary is right now, which, let's just say they insert Keely Ringo or even Isaiah Rodgers. This is going to be the youngest secondary by far in the National Football League, and yet it's probably going to be top 5. I mean, top 3 most feared going into 2025.
Yeah. Just
Crazy.
defense as a whole. Youngest defense in the league. We'll see where they end up being to start next year. But last year, youngest defense in the league, #1 defense. Secondary looks like it'll be even more on that side. Really quickly, before I do get to the Super Chat, because I've seen a couple comments similar to this one of, Maddox and Bradbury should have been gone before Slay. This is disrespectful. This is actually a respectful move. We mentioned a second ago, or kind of alluded to it, but it's
100%.
This is to allow Slay the first pickings on the free agent market. If Howie had said, "Nah, we're gonna wait," right? Like because they could wait all the way till after June 1st and go, "Hey, you're cut." Like that is the most disrespectful thing, because give him the opportunity before free agency even happens, before teams start cutting players, extending players, making decisions on their own internal roster, to say,
100%.
"Here you go. Hey, you know what? Agents or his agent, everyone else out there for the teams, you have 1 week now before official tampering, legal tampering happens to now prepare and say, hey, does Darius Slay potentially impact our roster?" So if anything, it's doing right by Slay. I think that he can appreciate it. He still potentially could come back, as we were saying. But I get it. I get the outrage of the initial knee jerk and everything else. Dylan with the 5. We appreciate that, Dylan. Michael Meyer is on the trade block. Would you be interested in trading Kenny Pickett for him and a pick exchange?
Stay tuned for my show this afternoon. We're talking about Michael Mayer. So maybe, I think they like the rookie class, the draft class for tight ends this year, and I think that's where they're going to go, because obviously Dallas Goedert still has 1 more year on his deal. Same for Grant Calcaterra. They don't need a tight end ready to go this season. Kenny Pickett's trade value is going to be interesting to see the next couple of days, I would probably say. But I think most teams that would want to trade for Kenny Pickett will do so out of desperation if they don't get a draft quarterback or a free agent quarterback that they wanted. So you kind of see that happening maybe after April in the May timeframe. But, I like the Raider tight end. He's pretty good.
I would take it. Sure. Yeah.
Sure.
You say what you get, like you said, on the potential draft compensation. But if anything, the positive is that Kenny Pickett got to play this year. Like,
in the Super Bowl.
Didn't necessarily want him to play. I know a lot of people are like, oh my gosh.
Sure.
But he did get to play, and he put up some pretty good numbers. So you have teams out there that might question and wonder, can he be a stopgap quarterback? Do we see a little bit of something in him worth trading and getting him there? Plus, we have Tanner McKee. So I feel surely if Howie and the rest of the organization, Nick Sirianni, you got Kevin Patullo realizing what they drafted, then you could say there's no concerns. I would think there's no concerns of if we lose our quote unquote second string quarterback and Kenny Pickett because of trade, then you still have Tanner McKee. So that might be even better, because then he's all of a sudden your second string. So sure, if you get anything for it, we'll see. I don't know if it's necessarily a recoup of anything close to what Howie had to give up, but that's another story. We won the Super Bowl, so we won't go there. DKT with a 10, appreciate that, said this is a good move about Slay. Would love to re-sign Rodgers, but also see what Ringo can do with more playing time.
Yeah, I'm just fascinated by what Isaiah Rodgers' market is. There's obviously going to be a market, and he's in this kind of weird middle ground where it's like he played in 2024, played very well, but it was limited, right? And it wasn't like he was elite whenever he came in, but he was still very good and obviously capable of being a starting cornerback in the National Football League. So what's that price, right? Are you going to pay him $12 million a year? Are you going to give him $8 million a year? You give him $5 million a year? I just don't know where Isaiah Rodgers' actual contract is going to stand. I think Philadelphia is going to let him go out into the market, take a look around, see if there's any team that he likes, but he also probably realizes the potential in Philadelphia to start for these Super Bowl defending champs in the Philadelphia Eagles on Vic Fangio's defense, and probably get a lot of balls thrown his way because Q's on the other side. So there's going to be a little bit of tug and pull here for the cornerback spot, but with Isaiah Rodgers, for instance, I think you're going to see him go look at the free agent market, make sure somebody doesn't want to severely overpay for him, like a Raider, like a Patriot, like obviously, you get the Panthers, teams that have a lot of money, before he would decide to come back to Philadelphia.
Yeah. And there's so many different, as you said, it's so many different avenues that you can look at it with. I was trying to find the full list, and there's obviously the average per year. We're not talking about the upper echelon of those, but still, you've got your ranges. Well, there's James Bradbury, of course, what people are going to say, but that that's a little bit different. 12.6 average per year of James Bradbury, but you even go down here and start looking at, in your $6 to $8 million range. If you're looking at some of those now, again, these are not just free agents. This is just a list of cornerbacks. But if you're looking at the quality somewhere around there, it seems. I know it's just one season, and Slay was out for a year, the suspension, or Zay was, and coming back. But yeah, I could see it somewhere. A team goes, we need a guy. We saw more than enough, and you offer him a $8 million a year contract. Multiple years to it, wonder about what the guarantee would be, but it wouldn't be totally surprising to me at all. I think if you got something like that for a contract, then what does Philly say, right? Long-term duration. Is he here for a while?
Right.
Would they be willing to match it? So be interesting. Jose with a 2. Who cares about Slay? He is old, non-issue.
Okay. He is old, right? And we mentioned that this is Philadelphia's obviously going to be fine and probably benefit from this, but you got to give him some respect because when they traded for him in 2021, the guy was the best cornerback we'd seen in a very long time and added a ton of stability at the position. 3 Pro Bowls, 2 Super Bowl appearances, 1 Super Bowl victory. One of the best recent trades in my recent memory that Howie Roseman has pulled off, and so. Credit to him. I hope he doesn't go to the Lions just because I don't want to root against him in Detroit. I think that makes a ton of sense if they wanted to have that reunion. He loves that city. But, maybe he comes back at a cheaper price. We got to wait and see.
Wouldn't be bad. I would appreciate it. Daniel with 2 said, what are your thoughts on Deebo going to our Suns?
Watch my show later on this afternoon, but I don't think it's a big factor. Deebo Samuel has not had a 1,000-yard receiving season since Slay was traded to Philadelphia in 2021. So, and 2 of the last 3, he's not even gotten over 700 receiving yards. So Deebo, it'd be really fun if it was 4 years ago. I'd be really scared if it was 4 years ago. He still has, some big playability, still a threat, number 2 alongside Terry McLaurin. All fine, not that scary though.
Yeah, I'm also in agreement as well. Yeah, it's the knee-jerk reaction, because I think as soon as we saw that report coming out, people were going crazy, oh my gosh, they got him for that type of a trade, and you look at all these other comparisons. What has he done? Go and look. What has he done? Is it a significant difference maker? It's not out of the realm of possibility. Sure, you could argue that, and they say, well, Zach Ertz even looked like a much younger version of himself in the offense and all. They might be able to maximize the potential, but even at that point, we're not talking about, as you say, a prime Deebo that's a game breaker and things like that. It's just my opinion. So who knows? Yep. David with a 5 found out my nephew played corner in high school. Told me when he went against Mekhi Becton, he got tossed around. Signed 77, Virginia. Let's go.
Yeah, that's another one that they need to re-sign. But doesn't surprise me because Mekhi Becton was probably massive in high school. So good stuff there. I was
going to say, if your nephew played corner too, that's unfortunate. Yes. I'm assuming Mekhi was pulling or something, but that is a mismatch waiting to have any corner. My gosh, I guess glad that your nephew is still alive to tell the tale. That might hurt a lot of people. Flip of the Bird 85 with a 2. How is Rodgers not eligible, Mott? How is Rodgers not? Oh, elite. Sorry. Okay, he sent a second one. I was what? How's he? Okay, how is Rodgers not elite, Mott?
Well, elite cornerbacks are elite, right? And we don't know if Isaiah Rodgers is that. Come on. We haven't seen enough from Isaiah Rodgers to say he's an elite cornerback. I'll say he's a good cornerback. I think he can be a great cornerback. You and I are personally big fans of him, right? We both met him, hung out with him. Really great guy. Wishing him the best. I hope he comes back to Philadelphia. But to say he's elite, right? Elite is a real strong word here. Elite means you're a top 5 cornerback in the National Football League, and no one thinks right now Isaiah Rodgers is that. The hope is, if you re-sign him, that he would go ahead and become that.
Yes, and it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. But again, if he was elite, no offense to Slay, but you probably would have had Zay starting with Quinyon Mitchell instead of
100%.
Slay. So
100%.
Still the potential there. We'll believe in that. IBH with a 5 says, let's not overlook any positive influence that Slay may have had with Q and Coop. 100%. Yes. And we're not. We said it earlier. If people are just checking it out, Slay being released. by the Eagles, official Adam Schefter, Diana Rossini, many others reporting. Always possible that he could return on a team-friendly contract, get something done there. But we said it earlier, say it again. We absolutely appreciate Slay for all of the mentorship. You know, Coop and Q and the others have talked about it many times. If you look at the mic'd up footage, press conferences, everything there meant a ton. And as have the other veterans that we mentioned as well. So not trying to overlook that at all. Definitely means a ton there. Tyler, member for 1 month. There you go. I think you're a member for longer, but for some reason it's only showing that. Says thoughts on AJ's comments on Micah. We'll probably wrap really quickly on that because we're getting all over the place. This is meant for just a Slay. Sure. We got more shows and info and everything else. But quickly, the thoughts on AJ's comments on Micah.
Yeah, there's a report that Dallas today is starting to work on the Micah Parsons restructuring. So I'd be very surprised. I know that that's always the fun topic is that future Eagle Micah Parsons will be a future Eagle. But I would say Myles Garrett is a lot more likely. There's real chatter out there about Myles Garrett, and that's the one to really keep an eye on. And it's worth noting, as I'll talk about on my show later this afternoon, keep plugging that thing. It's coming out very soon. You can trade for Myles Garrett right now, right? You don't have to wait to sign Myles Garrett on Monday because Myles Garrett is a trade candidate. As you saw Deebo go to the Washington Commanders, he's not a free agent. So the Myles Garrett stuff could really ramp up. The Zack Baun, because you can sign him before free agency because he's an internal free agent. It's going to ramp up a lot in the next couple of days, maybe the next couple of hours. We're always the first. I already got almost 3,000 people watching this one here. Make sure you guys subscribe, hit that notification bell as well. We appreciate it.
There we go. Absolutely. A couple last-minute super chats here, so we'll make sure to get to those. The S-Box with a 5. Let's all agree one thing. Keep Slay the hell away from the Giants, Commanders, or Cowboys. That would
I don't
be
think he
nightmare.
would sign with them. I don't think he'd sign with them. I think it's Detroit. Detroit makes the most sense.
Yeah, see, I think it's either Detroit or Baltimore because Baltimore had the interest last time, so I still could feel like they may try to sneak in there and get something to happen on that side. But yeah, if I was gonna say, I would put Detroit number 1 option, Baltimore number 2, if it's not Philly, if it's not Philly for returning for that. Looks like I think last one here, Advocate with a 10 bomb. Appreciate that. Also saying Slay was big in the locker room and his swagger was contagious. Howie put Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean, and Tyler Steen in a package for Garrett. Fly, Eagles, fly.
Okay, I don't think that they want to do that. I think that they would give up draft picks instead, would be my guess there. So
several different options there for the guys. Yeah, you never rule out anything with Howie, but yeah, that's a lot of just players and personnel. I can't envision that either. I think it'd be, we've talked about it, 32 is basically a second-round pick. It's a first-round pick, but basically a second. Try to make something happen with that. Maybe another potential player, but even that, you know, you kind of get leery of. There's a couple players that I won't name. We won't get into that tangent, but we do not want them to trade. Okay, Flip the Bird, 5 more. Rodgers had an amazing pass breakup. He also said, I think I missed this one. I'm not sure. He said Rodgers was a top 5 corner before his suspension, and then he also said Rodgers had an amazing pass breakup on the CJ-GJ interception. He balled with the limited playing time.
Top 5 cornerback, you say? I don't think Isaiah Rodgers was a top 5 cornerback pre-suspension. I think he was trending up, but again, elite means top 5, and I don't think he was top 5. So agree to disagree there, Flipping the Bird.
Yeah, but no one's going to disagree that when he got in there, he did make sure.
Yes,
he
played very well.
He played very well.
No one said he didn't.
But
yes,
100%.
100%.
It's also the very gray area of like, how does someone else classify? Because if we say, hey, elite is top 5, someone else goes, no, elite might be top 10 or might be top 15, even though I know he made the argument saying he was top 5 before the suspension. But, taking time off of anything can potentially, slightly bump you down, even if you believe that, even if you're saying, hey, there was top 5 before that point. I don't know. We would still say, again, if there's a way to make it work, have him return to Philly. Paul Mahone with a 2 says, let someone else get Garrett.
Okay.
There are plenty of people that think that. More people that say that than to go get Garrett. We ran a poll, unless it's changed, because it could over the weekend. But the last poll was saying that. So we will see. But appreciate you guys. Obviously wanted to hop on here, the main story, which, again, I'll put it up here on the screen lastly if there's last-minute people joining. But Darius Slay being released by the Eagles post-June 1 release. So it'll save $4.3 million against the cap. Other moves to come, signifying some potentials in the works. So stay tuned for that. Of course, we'll be not breaking the news, but hopping on live as soon as we do have breaking news for you guys. And this is the season. I texted Thomas as soon as it happened. I was like, I forgot kind of about this, but
I did too. Get ready.
We're in the season of news breaking and free agent moves, trades, everything else. So make sure to subscribe, turn the notifications on. Appreciate you guys. as always, go Birds.
Go Birds.